Welcome to Seeking the Sacred Self. I'm your host, Naomi Rozak. To be honest, I'm not sure what today's topic is, but as I was journaling this morning, I was receiving some wisdom from my inner self, and it told me to sit in front of the mic and have an experience of delight, to let delight lead my way today. And so I'm sitting here without a plan for how today's episode will go. And in a way, this can demonstrate to you how when you stay connected to your truest self and are willing to take some risks, but more than that, you're willing to hear what the voice says and follow through with it, things in your life could become really beautiful. Things in your life could be filled with delight. You could find a new way forward that you had never dreamed of or anticipated. And I think that's what I want to talk about today, is that there is another way to live life than the way most of us do. We live in a world that is so much about the rush and the clamor and the hustle and, oh my God, the to-do list that we pay attention to every day. We start out as these beautiful, innocent babies in the world, and we grow into explorative toddlers with a curious nature who just want to get their fingers and their bodies and their eyes into the dirt and into the world around them, and they're full of curiosity. They spend their days saying, "Mama, why? Why this? Why that? Why can't we? Why can we?" They are very disturbed when we tell them we can't do what they want. When we tell them we need to go somewhere, they're like, "What the heck? I was just doing my favorite activity. I can't stop to go meet some outer schedule of the world." Of course, they don't say it in as many words. They're just these little children who don't have that ability to express everything they feel, but they express it with their emotional selves, with the resistance to do what mom wants them to do, and the loud crying and yelling, which is really the only way they can get their point across. And so we have these little children so full of curiosity and wonder. And that's really the way we come to the world. And that's an essence that is inside of us from the time we are born, to look around the world and say, what is this place? What could I learn about it? Why is it so interesting? And we want to just bury ourselves in what this world is. Some of us, if we're lucky, we get to keep that sense of wonder and awe. We get to carry it through some of our lives. But what most likely happens for most people is there's a slow encroaching of a different kind of world into our inner world of wonder and awe. And it actually begins with the schedule, or with the expectations of the parent, or when we are punished for being our emotional selves. Something comes in and begins to tell us, ooh, actually, the world that we thought was so wonderful has some really difficult things. It really doesn't want us to be as expressive as we are. It really doesn't want us to explore the way we want to. It doesn't care whether we're full of wonder or awe. It only cares what the most powerful presence in the room is dictating, or the most powerful presence in our environment, or that has influence over us. And so very often we learn it from our parents that wonder and delight are not an acceptable way to conduct our lives. And it's not only our parents, it is the larger family around us. Sadly, it's often our summer camps and our vacation Bible schools and our churches. And then it moves on into our public school system and our family dysfunction and bigger things that begin to reflect to us that in no way should we live out the inner essence of us and the playfulness and the delight and the loudness and the responsiveness and the vibrancy of childhood. The world begins to say, we have no room for this. we don't want to see you as you are. We want to see you toe the line that we tell you is appropriate. And so for many, the line is to sit still in school and learn and write things on paper and do exactly what the teacher says and work for the results that the teacher and parents want. And then we come home tired after school, and somehow the world isn't full of wonder. But if we're lucky, maybe we have a little bit of time to play outside before we go to bed early because we have a big day tomorrow. And then we're woken up often too early and have a fractious and discontented morning before we head out to school again and repeat the whole thing again. And then maybe again, if we're lucky, on the weekends, we get to re-find a little piece of ourselves, a little piece of delight again. We get to come back in touch with who we are. But then over time, because school is relentless and day after day and week after week and month after month, and parents perceive that their job is to change the children into people who will not be damaged by the world around them. And so in essence, they're teaching their children to be small and quiet and obedient. They don't want their children to be too vibrant, too full of life, too full of their inner essence, because they don't really want their children to stand out. They don't want their children to attract the wrong kind of attention. They don't want their children punished by teachers and principals and government and a society that doesn't make room for delight and ease and joy and playfulness. Adults know that only too soon reality, what we call reality, will hit, and our children will then need to work for a living. They will discover that in our society, there's not enough room for play, that play doesn't earn us money. And most of us over time feel that we have signed up for a life of hard work, of drudgery, of difficult routine, of fatigue and overwork. And even though something inside of us rebels against preparing our children for that world, we somehow think this is our job, that we have to shape our children into beings that can fit into that world without it being so difficult. In doing that, we deny our own sense of difficulty, the difficulty we're having in living the life right now, the life that it feels like we signed up for, so we don't get to complain about, and really the life that we're not enjoying very much. And it's our fear for our children's safety and well-being, our fear of the condition of the world around us and how much it demands of us, that causes us to control our children in a certain way, to shut down their playfulness. It's the places in us that we have not confronted. It's the pain of our own childhood when our own ease and playfulness were shut down. Or maybe we're someone who was born with a slightly different nature. We were born a little more anxious, a little more reticent, a little bit more as a background person. And even that was shamed, even that was shut down. And so even those children who may have a more difficult time in their nervous system, a more difficult time being in the world, even they're told that they can't be that way. And it shuts them down to the wonder of their super sensitive self, because along with that does come a heightened sensitivity to the beauty of the world and the pain of the world. And this is also an okay way of being. And I think the more we build space for our children to be exactly who they are, they can come to discover the wonder inside of that, even when there's also difficulty. Not that we are saying to our children they need to be playful or they need to be a certain thing. It would be embracing our children as they are and introducing them to the wonder of the world and letting them be who they came to be, so that they find within themselves a comfort with their own essence. an acceptance of who they are, and then they could embark on that great path of discovery to say, this is who I am, and look at all my gifts, and look at what's difficult for me, and oh, it's okay, I have those difficult places because I also have these wonderful strengths. I think I've done an okay job of explaining kind of how we're shaped to be a little bit robotic in our approach to life by the time we're adults. This is a common story. This is the age we live in. And American culture, in addition, is very much a pull yourself up by the bootstraps, hustle, 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 work to prove your worth. If you can't work, you don't have worth kind of society. And the idea, unfortunately and so sadly, is that you get to rest, you get to play when all your work is done, when you get to be 55 or 65 or 70, and you finally worked to have enough to live on for the rest of your life. If you're lucky, then maybe you'll get to rest a little while and you'll get to play. And I think many of us are waking up to the idea that that's not good enough for us. We've been living in this hustle, control, work hard, aim for the money world for so long. We are children of parents who did that. We have become those people ourselves, and we are realizing how dissatisfied we are with that being the essence of our lives. We want something more than this. So this is a Thursday, the 9th of May, and on Monday I woke up and it was my intention to work on this podcast. I try to write notes on Monday, finish them on Tuesday, and either record on Tuesday or later in the week when I have a chance. But Monday I woke up and I was writing in my journal and I asked my inner wisdom what I should talk about this week. I didn't feel really connected. I didn't feel like I was hearing that inner voice clearly. And all that could come up in my body was the word overwhelm. And I was like, are you kidding? I am not going to do a podcast on overwhelm. That would suck so bad. I am not at all interested in doing a podcast on overwhelm. And there's two reasons for this. One of them is that from my own trauma, overwhelm is a very easy and natural state for me to fall into. It is kind of a coping mechanism because if I get overwhelmed, then I feel a bit paralyzed and I don't have to do the thing. I can procrastinate on it a little bit. And quite honestly, it's also a state that happens when you've been working really hard and you've volunteered to take your son's class to a mountain town / hiking trip and you still haven't recovered from that. And you've done some things outside of your comfort zone and you're still feeling some of the emotional fallout of that because that will bring some exhaustion, that will bring some anxiety and high emotions. And physically, mentally, I would always require some rest after that. And also, my house was a state, just an absolute mess. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized actually what I'm just feeling is overwhelm. I don't think this is guidance for a podcast. This is just how I'm feeling. And as I sat there, my inner voice began to say, what if there's a way of delight this week? And I thought, are you effing kidding me? It doesn't feel like there's any delight for me in this Monday morning when the floor around me is covered in lint and dog toys and I don't have a lot of energy. I hadn't been sleeping well. I have to do this podcast. I have to do this. I have to do that. In the past few years, though, I've really gotten to know myself well. And one of the things I know is that when I'm feeling exhausted, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, the best thing I can do is not to push through. The best thing I can do is to rest. And rest for me might mean laying down, doing nothing, watching some Netflix, or it might mean reading a book. But sometimes it means looking at the thing that's weighing me down the most and getting that one thing off my plate. And so I chose to start looking for some delight in the day and what would bring me the most pleasure. And actually the thing that felt the best was to go down and clean the whole main floor of my house, get rid of the clutter, vacuum the floor, wash the dishes that were cluttering the counters, run the dishwasher through, wash the rug at the front door. And as I did these things, I began to feel this pleasure in my body, this sense of, oh, this feels really good. This is wonderful. This is what I really needed. That's maybe not the best example of delight. But what I want to share is that we have been trained to attack the to-do list. We have been trained that everything outside of us is the most important thing to do. We have been trained to never let down other people, to never fall back on a commitment or expectations. We have been trained we must please the other people. We mustn't fall short on the job. We can't take time for ourselves if it inconveniences anybody else, and we can't drop the ball. We have been taught to view the to-do list as God, that it controls all day, every day. And the more adult you are and the more commitments you have, and likely the more you are also primary caregiver for your family, the bigger that to-do list is. And the truth is that it will never end. And so part of my growth experience over the last couple of years is to look and find the wonder and the delight and the awe in between the tasks on the to-do list. I think from my past trauma, from my environment and my upbringing, from growing up in a house with very self-disciplined people who were very capable, and that was modeled to me all the time, I grew into thinking that I must look exactly like that. I must do that, or I am not worth anything. And yet, when I become that person, something in me shrivels up and wants to die. It is too much. The constant press, the pressure of activities, of expectations, of not a moment to slow down and notice what's around me and contemplate the beauty of life. It eats me up inside, and I become this person that is grieving, this person that feels lost and sad and wants to know, won't she ever get to live the life she wants? Won't life ever happen for her the way she dreams of, the way she longs for inside? As I've come to know myself better, I've come to realize that what I really want is a mindful life, a life of slowness and contemplation and lots of time to be with myself and to be in nature, to see the small, miraculous moments all around me. I don't want a lot of hubbub. I don't want parties every weekend. I don't want pressure on my shoulders, like insanity pushing on me all the time. I want to dream. I want to breathe. I want so much time in which to be able to exercise my way and to read long, beautiful books and to write dreamy, contemplative things. I want to be able to speak my heart out on this podcast, and I want time to connect with myself and with close friends and with spirit. I want to be real and vitally here in my life and aware of as many moments I possibly can. And then there's the reality. I have the to-do list. I have 2 children. One is homeschooling. One is in a public school program that has required a lot of input because it's an alternative program that needs a lot of parent volunteer time. I do have a home to run, and I do have values as far as the food we eat and the way we connect to each other. And everybody has health appointments, a lot of them sometimes. And there are stressful things that happen. And I have a dog to walk and take to the vet and the groomer and the chiropractor and all these things. So it can feel like that list is unending. And I need to acknowledge that that list is unending, and yours will be as well. So what can we do? At some point in the last couple of years, what has come to me is that instead of approaching my days with dread when they are too full, when there is more time out of the house than what I want, I can wake up with a feeling in my body of who knows what unexpected moments might happen today. Who knows what dreamy little thing might happen. As I go through my day, I might have moments of magic that I could not have anticipated. And maybe if I'm thinking only in a stressful mindset and I'm anxious about the next activity in the next moment of my schedule, I might miss. And that might be as simple as I'm listening to a podcast on the way to school and something in that podcast answers a question I've been having or brings me to tears, or I just have this beautiful moment of empathy with the person who's speaking and it really lights up my day. Or maybe when I'm cooking breakfast, I can put on some of my favorite music, or somewhere in that busyness, I get a text from a friend that lights me up. They were just thinking about me and wanted to let me know how awesome they think I am, or something like that. This is all about awareness, and awareness without judgment or pressure, because this is something I've been working towards for many years. First, I had to do a lot of trauma healing. Then I had to work on a nervous system that had been in fight or flight or fawn for most of its life and needed to learn how to kind of come back to my calm self, find my calm core, and then let my inner voice lead me bit by bit into a path that feels more peaceful, that feels more doable, that feels aware of the world around it and my interactions with it. And the more I grow that awareness of each moment, the more I grow that relationship with my own thoughts and feelings and where I am in each moment. I can be driving the car and my thoughts are 2 hours ahead to a doctor's appointment. And if I live out of my body, if I live in the future, I can't have delight. And what I have instead is anxiety and stress. And my vision gets tighter because I'm not even really seeing what's ahead of me. My mind is 2 hours ahead and my back feels tense because I'm not breathing in the right state. I'm not noticing how much stress it's causing me to live in the future, to live in my schedule, to live in the to-do list. But bringing my mind back to the moment allows me to see the fields that are turning green around me as I drive, allows me to see the shape and color of the clouds in the sky, allows me to feel the warmth of the sun on my shoulders and the feeling of love that comes in that warmth. And I'm aware of a whole world around me full of wonder. And just that moment, that 1 minute or 5 minutes is enough to transform my whole day because I was right there in my body and I noticed the wonder of it. So what I'm sharing today is this idea that there's an awareness we can live with that is not only about navigating a to-do list and living with some wonder in it, but there's a whole nother layer of delight that's available to us. And that's when we choose to step away from the pressure, away from the expectation, and do something that fills us with a natural delight. And that might be getting your hands dirty in some dirt in the backyard. That might be running with your dog in the dog park. That might be slowing down to hear the joke that your teenage son tells, and both of you are filled with laughter and presence in that moment. The more I practice delight and playfulness, it's like the more who I was as a child comes back to me. The one who loved to run around in nature, who noticed every flower, who would make an avalanche of mud down the hill in the wet springtime dirt, and who played with the slate rock behind her garage, pretending to be a secretary, using the rocks to write on each other and make them into floppy disks and pads of paper. When I was young, the world was so full of wonder that I could have stayed outside for hours and been completely content. I didn't need another person. I didn't need something to tell me how to play or what to do. I just lived in that moment and was full of pleasure and delight. I think when we lose our delight, we lose a vital sense of ourselves, of how we express ourselves in the world, what we're meant to do, and what we're meant to be. I think I can safely say that we don't find who we really are by pushing ourselves for 20 years. I think we find out who we are and what we want and how to approach it with wonder when we let ourselves slow down a little bit, when we really contemplate what we need and what we want, when we really take time to say, sure, I have things to do, I have responsibilities, there are many tasks always waiting for me, and we recognize that the to-do list will never be done and will never bring us the satisfaction we hope for. So what could we do instead? I remember listening to an episode of We Can Do Hard Things by Glennon Doyle and her wife and sister, and their guest was talking about depression, and particularly depression in women, mothers, caregivers. And what was brought to light is that we think the opposite of depression is happiness. And we try to force happiness and we try to make it happen and we shame ourselves for being depressed. When the true opposite of depression is play and playfulness and wonder and delight. And yet we've become such a generation of overworked, overfocused, pressured people or women that we have lost our connection to how to be happy because we no longer know how to play and how to find delight. I want to tell you that delight can be so simple. It can be pulling your favorite blanket over your shoulders and snuggling in to watch your favorite show or book. It can be stretching yourself out on your stomach on the grass, your hands plowing through the grass blades and feeling the greenness and the earthiness and the coolness and the sun on your back as you lay there. Delight can be holding a baby close to your chest, breathing in the smell, the feel, the connection. Delight can be running through the rain, splashing, water, getting dirty. It can be wild laughter with your friends or with yourself. I'll never forget my dog, Boo, came to be part of our family in the summer of 2020, and he is a very playful Labradoodle Springer Spaniel cross. He has white curly hair with chocolate brown patches all over his body. Boo is a very present animal. He has been one of the things that has brought so much playfulness into my life. But he mostly eats just dog food, and we give him a little potato chip or something exciting once in a while. But as a family, one of our enjoyment things has been to try different foods. And in general, he's not a big fan of vegetables and fruits. There are some that will work for him. But I'll never forget the day I gave him a little piece of raw broccoli and watched him play around with that piece of broccoli and try to figure it out and keep spitting it out because he just didn't like how it tasted, but he really, really wanted to eat this human food, but the broccoli was just so bad. And I reared my head back and howled with laughter and then realized how rarely I have howled with laughter in my life, in decades. It was so rare for me to do that I couldn't remember the last time it had happened. But what was happening inside me, because this was probably 2021, about 3 years after I started using the mind-body connection and my self-awareness to heal trauma and to reconnect to myself, was the more that I found myself, the more I reconnected to those lost pieces, and the more childlike and full of wonder I became again. I think a natural result of feeling more wonder and delight and slowing down and being in the moment is that you can react to the moment only, not bearing the weight of all the things to come or all the things that have happened, but being in this moment itself. And a dog spitting out a piece of broccoli can be the funniest thing you've ever seen. If this episode has a point, and I hope that you feel it does, it is that you're being invited to find your way back to another piece of yourself, another place. And there might be some discomfort with going back there. We play when we feel safe. We feel delight when we feel safe, when we feel connected, when we feel alive, and when we can drop our burdens and our worries. When for that moment it feels like we don't have worries. And yet I promise you that play and delight can be found in the most stressful of times if you are using self-awareness to help you move through what's happening. 2021 was actually one of the most difficult years I've had in many years. There were tremendously difficult things going on in my home, and it was almost a requirement for me to be aware of my own feelings and my own fears and work with them every day so that I could be a solid and steady presence for others in my home, but also as a requirement for me so that I could continue to be human and feel alive and feel joy and not feel that all of life was stressful and difficult. Stress and difficulty can happen around us without us carrying it every second. It is not a requirement of life for you to carry in your body every difficult thing happening around you. It is a requirement as you want to heal and as you want to grow forward, that you learn to feel and shift through those burdens and find yourself again so that you can find your way back to all the potential wonder that is available to you and waiting for you. It's a journey. It's not something that happens in a day. When we are overwhelmed and overburdened, it can sometimes feel like there's no possibility out there. We're too exhausted to even contemplate how to build in time to find delight again. So I recommend you start by something small. Take 5 minutes to rub some lotion into your body after a bath. And as you do it, feel your hands on your skin and how the body delights in that loving attention. Feel the love in your hands and the warmth that comes from them as you spend just that moment with your body. Take a deep breath when your loved one comes close to you. Just a moment to put a hand on their shoulder and look into their eyes. Communicate with your eyes to them that you see them and watch them see you too. Watch that unspoken connection deepen and build you up inside and delight you both. Take a moment to think about who you used to be and where you used to find delight. Maybe it's been a really long time, and that's okay. If I can find delight that was slowly abandoned from the age 4 to the age of 7, if I can do it, I know you can too. Delight comes from all of our senses. It comes from see, touch, feel, hear, smell. It comes from self-expression and connection to the people and things we really love. It comes from beauty and kindness and graciousness. It comes with recognizing how far you've grown and wonderful changes you've made and things you've achieved. And then taking a moment to really drink that in and really honor yourself and be delighted with yourself. Know that if delight feels like a far off thing, the fact that you want it, the fact that you wish for it, the fact that you feel the absence of it and the longing for it means it is within your grasp if you keep going on your journey. Keep listening for what your inner voice is pointing you towards. Keep taking advantage of those small things that are pulling at your attention and giving them a try. I didn't know I was looking for delight. I was just looking to not have a brain that was so scrambled when I started on my healing journey. Delight is one of the byproducts that came the more I healed, the more my self-awareness increased. Let yourself go on a journey to see how much could be possible if you will just keep taking the little steps ahead of you. There may be a future coming to you that is beyond your wildest imagination, something you thought you could never achieve. But as you sit with that sacred self inside of you and let it direct you, the gifts that come because of it could be unimaginable in the most positive, sparkling, out of this world way. If you have been on a delight journey, I'd love to hear what you're finding below. And if you're really puzzled and you're like, I don't even know how to start, the only place to ever start is where you are right now. And so it may not be where can I find delight today, but it might be what is preventing me from having any delight, and being willing to address and undo those little or big pieces until you see more light on your path, more freedom in your spirit, more opportunity for delight to come in. My DMs are always open. You can comment on this YouTube video. I would love to go deeper into this conversation with you. You can find me on Instagram at Sacred Self Guide. And please take time to like and share this podcast with a friend if it has helped you in any way. And I'll see you again next week when we go a little deeper again.